Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to today's presentation. We'll be exploring diverse schooling methods and global educational practices. The title of our presentation is Exploring Diverse Schooling Methods and Global Educational Practices, and we will be conducting a comparative analysis of education systems in Botswana, Egypt, Sweden, and South Africa. Over the next few minutes, we'll take a closer look at how different countries approach education, highlighting key similarities and differences. I look forward to sharing insights and engaging with you all on this fascinating topic. Let's get started. Welcome to our second slide, where we'll be taking a broad look at comparative education systems overview. Here, the focus is on understanding the key differences and similarities among various education systems around the world. This overview sets the foundation for our entire discussion, helping us see how different countries approach education, what factors influence their strategies, and how these insights can inform our own practices. By examining these systems comparatively, we can identify best practices, recognize challenges, and appreciate the diversity in educational approaches globally. This will ultimately enhance our understanding and enable us to make more informed decisions in our field. So, let's dive in and explore the fascinating landscape of education systems worldwide. Today, I want to talk about the purpose of this comparison. Essentially, we're analyzing different education systems to better understand how factors like history, politics, economy, and society influence the way education is structured and delivered in various countries. By doing so, we can uncover patterns and insights that might inform improvements. We'll focus on several key areas for our analysis. These include governance, which looks at how education systems are managed, curriculum and assessment, which deal with what students learn and how their progress is measured, equity, ensuring fair access for all students, teacher education, to understand how teachers are prepared and supported, funding, which is vital for resources, and the challenges that each system faces. Our comparison particularly highlights the differences between African developing countries and Sweden's welfare state model, which is very learner-centered. This contrast helps us see what approaches work best in different contexts and what lessons might be adapted to improve educational outcomes elsewhere. Ultimately, the goal of this study is to identify best practices and lessons learned that can inform educational reform and strategic planning, especially for South Africa. We want to see what can be applied locally to foster better educational opportunities and outcomes. All of this ties back to our overarching theme of understanding and improving education through meaningful comparison. Let's start with Botswana's post-independence education. After gaining independence in 1966, Botswana focused on building an education system that promotes social harmony and develops human resources. This approach was essential for the country's nation-building efforts and economic growth. Moving on to Egypt, their education system is a fascinating blend of ancient civilization roots combined with modern influences. These influences have been shaped by colonial history and ongoing political changes, creating a unique educational landscape that connects the past with the present. Now, looking at Sweden, their welfare state model has played a significant role since the 19th century. The stable monarchy and social democracy fostered a system of compulsory schooling that emphasizes equality and inclusivity, ensuring that education is accessible to all. Finally, in South Africa, post-apartheid reforms initiated after 1994 have been crucial in addressing the deep-seated inequalities of the past. These reforms aim to transform the curriculum and provide equitable access to quality education for everyone, supporting the country's broader goals of social justice and unity. Connecting all these examples, we see how historical contexts shape education systems to address specific social, political, and economic needs. Let's take a closer look at governance and state control of education across different contexts. Botswana and Egypt, for example, maintain strong central control over their curricula, assessments, and policies. This means that decision-making is highly centralized, with limited room for decentralization or local input. Such an approach can ensure consistency and uniform standards, but it may also limit flexibility at the local level. In contrast, Sweden employs a decentralized school management model. Here, municipalities play a key role within a solid national framework that enforces standards. This setup allows for local decision-making and adaptation, while still maintaining overall quality and cohesion through national oversight. Then we have South Africa, which uses a hybrid governance structure. The country sets national policies, but the actual implementation occurs at the provincial level. While this approach aims to balance national standards with local flexibility, it can face coordination challenges that sometimes impact the overall quality of education. Connecting this to the broader theme, these examples highlight how different governance models influence the effectiveness, flexibility, and quality of education systems. The degree of centralization or decentralization can significantly shape how policies are executed and how well educational goals are achieved. Now let's take a closer look at the variations in compulsory education across different countries. As you can see, education laws differ quite a bit. For example, Sweden mandates 9 years of education, ensuring all children have a solid foundation. In contrast, Egypt enforces compulsory education specifically for primary and preparatory levels, but not beyond that. South Africa requires students to stay in school up to grade 9, which is roughly 9 years, similar to Sweden but with different enforcement. Botswana, on the other hand, offers free schooling, but it's not strictly compulsory, giving families more choice. Focusing on Egypt, there are some notable challenges. Despite the legal requirements, the country struggles with overcrowded classrooms and shortages of resources. This means that even when laws are in place, the practical realities can hinder effective education delivery. Looking at the structure of schooling phases, all 4 countries follow a similar pattern: primary, secondary, and post-secondary education. However, the way students transition between these phases varies. For instance, Botswana and Egypt tend to have more selective progression, meaning students often face more barriers to move smoothly from one phase to the next. On the other hand, Sweden and South Africa put a stronger emphasis on broad access and smoother transitions. They aim to make the process as inclusive and seamless as possible, recognizing that easier transitions can improve student retention and success. So overall, these differences highlight how each country approaches education based on their unique contexts, but the common goal remains: providing quality education and ensuring students can move through their schooling phases effectively. Let's take a look at Botswana's approach first. Since the 1990s, Botswana has prioritized an outcomes-based curriculum that emphasizes vocational skills. The goal here is to enhance employability by focusing on practical, job-ready skills that align with the needs of the labor market. This approach helps students develop competencies that make them more competitive in the workforce. Moving on to Egypt, their curriculum is quite different. They retain a centrally prescribed curriculum that emphasizes memorization, which has traditionally been the norm. However, recent reforms are now encouraging critical thinking, pushing students to analyze and evaluate rather than just recall information. This shift aims to create a more balanced and meaningful learning experience. Now let's consider Sweden. Their approach is very learner-centered, promoting a flexible, competency-based curriculum. This means students are encouraged to be creative, solve problems, and learn independently. The focus here is on developing skills that foster innovation and adaptability, preparing learners for a rapidly changing world. Finally, South Africa employs a balanced curriculum through their CAP system. It combines content knowledge with skills development, aiming to address issues of inequality and ensure relevance. The idea is to equip students not just with facts, but with the abilities they need to succeed in diverse contexts and contribute meaningfully to society. Overall, these different approaches reflect varied priorities and contexts, but all aim to improve educational outcomes and better prepare students for the future. Let's start with Botswana. They have a bilingual policy where Setswana is used in early education to help children build a strong foundation in their native language. As students progress to higher grades, the instruction transitions to English, which supports bilingualism and prepares them for a globalized world. This approach balances cultural identity with international opportunities. Moving on to Egypt, the country's multilingual system primarily centers around Arabic, which is the official language and the main medium of instruction. However, Egypt also offers education in English, French, and German, particularly in language and international schools. This variety reflects Egypt's historical ties and its recognition of the importance of multiple languages in a global context. Next, in Sweden, the focus is on linguistic inclusion. Swedish remains the main language of instruction, but the country actively promotes multilingual education, especially for immigrant learners. This ensures that students can maintain their native languages while acquiring Swedish, fostering both cultural diversity and integration. Finally, South Africa presents a complex linguistic landscape. It officially recognizes 11 languages, which is quite remarkable. The ongoing debate centers around whether instruction should be in mother tongue languages or in English, which is often seen as a unifying national language. This discussion highlights the challenges and importance of balancing linguistic diversity with practical educational needs. All these examples show how different countries approach the language of instruction, shaped by their unique cultural and societal contexts. They illustrate the broader theme that language policies are deeply connected to identity, inclusion, and global engagement. Now, let's take a closer look at Botswana's approach. They combine national exit exams with ongoing school-based assessments. This balanced method helps ensure accountability while still supporting learners throughout their education. It's a way to measure student progress comprehensively without relying solely on one type of assessment. Moving on to Egypt, their system is quite exam-driven. They depend heavily on high-stakes national exams, which play a crucial role in determining whether students can progress. While this can be effective, it also tends to increase pressure on students and can sometimes deepen inequalities, since not all students have the same resources or support. In contrast, Sweden emphasizes continuous formative assessments. They trust their teachers' professionalism to gauge student learning, rather than relying mainly on external exams. This approach fosters ongoing feedback and development, helping students learn in a more holistic way. Finally, South Africa employs a mixed system. They combine school-based assessments with national exams, aiming to strike a balance between supporting holistic development and maintaining accountability. It's an example of trying to blend different assessment strategies to serve diverse educational goals. All of these systems reflect different priorities and contexts, but they each offer valuable insights into how assessment can be designed to support both learners and educational standards. Let's take a closer look at how formal teacher training varies across different countries. While all countries do require some form of formal training for teachers, the support, incentives, and professional status attached to that training can differ quite a bit. For example, in Sweden, there's a strong focus on ongoing professional development and giving teachers a good deal of autonomy. This approach helps build high levels of trust in the education system and encourages teachers to continually improve their skills. Moving to Botswana and South Africa, we see that structured training programs do exist. However, a significant challenge is making sure that this training is relevant and aligned with what teachers actually face in the classroom, as well as the curriculum they're expected to deliver. Bridging that gap remains a key issue. In Egypt, we've seen efforts to expand teacher training programs, often with international support. While these initiatives are promising, large class sizes and limited resources still pose serious obstacles to achieving the desired outcomes from training. So overall, these examples highlight how different contexts shape teacher education and professional development, which are crucial for improving education quality worldwide. Sweden's approach to inclusive education is quite impressive. They manage to achieve high participation and completion rates largely thanks to strong public funding and robust social welfare support. This creates an environment where education is accessible to most, and students are supported throughout their learning journey. It's a great example of how investments in social systems can promote educational equity. Moving on to Egypt, they've made significant strides in expanding enrollment. However, challenges remain, particularly with overcrowding in schools and disparities between rural and urban areas. Access isn't always equal, which can hinder students' ability to fully benefit from education. These issues highlight the importance of not just increasing enrollment, but also ensuring quality and equitable access for all. In Botswana, there's broad access to primary and secondary education, which is encouraging. But because schooling isn't compulsory, some vulnerable groups, like children from marginalized communities, may not participate as fully. This illustrates that simply opening schools isn't enough. We need policies that encourage participation and support vulnerable populations. Finally, South Africa has made notable progress since 1994, improving access to education for many. Yet, socioeconomic inequalities still pose significant barriers. These disparities continue to influence who can succeed in education, reminding us that achieving true equity requires ongoing effort to address these deeper social inequalities. All of these examples show that access, participation, and equity are interconnected, and addressing one aspect often requires tackling broader social and policy issues. Let's take a closer look at private education and higher education systems across different countries. Private education varies quite a bit from one country to another, influenced largely by socioeconomic factors. For example, in Egypt and South Africa, you'll find large private sectors, which often reflect broader economic disparities and social structures. Moving on to higher education systems, Sweden and South Africa are notable for their diverse universities, which are known for strong research output and broad academic offerings. In contrast, Egypt has the largest higher education system in the Arab region, serving a significant student population and offering a wide range of programs. Now, when we look at challenges within these systems, Botswana stands out because its private and higher education sectors are smaller and more selective. This limited scale and access reflect a more controlled approach, which contrasts with the broader, more inclusive systems seen elsewhere. Overall, these differences highlight how socioeconomic factors, government policies, and regional contexts shape private and higher education across Africa. Let's take a look at how different countries fund their education systems. Starting with Sweden, they rely heavily on strong public funding through high taxes. This approach helps ensure that education is accessible and equitable for everyone across the country. It's a good example of how robust public investment can support social fairness. Moving on to Egypt, they use a combination of state funding and international aid. While this mix can provide necessary resources, it also comes with challenges. Egypt faces resource constraints that can impact the quality of education, highlighting the importance of sustainable and efficient funding strategies. In Botswana and South Africa, we see a different model: mixed funding. They combine public investment with contributions from households and private sources. This diversified approach can help expand resources, but it also raises questions about equality and access, especially if private contributions become a barrier for some students. Finally, no matter the model, countries face common challenges. Sustainability, overcrowding, and inequality are persistent issues that need tailored policies. Addressing these requires long-term investments and innovative solutions to ensure that education systems serve all learners effectively. So, as we look at these different education systems, we see some clear themes emerging. Sweden stands out for its progressive approach, emphasizing equity, quality, and learner-centered education. They achieve this through strong investment in teachers and making inclusion a top priority. It's a model that shows how focusing on both teacher support and inclusion can drive positive outcomes. Botswana, on the other hand, offers a good example of stability and social cohesion. Their education system aligns closely with national development goals, which helps ensure that education supports broader societal stability and progress. Egypt faces the challenge of large-scale reforms, especially amid political changes, which makes it a complex but important case. They're working hard to improve mass education, even as they navigate these broader reforms. Finally, South Africa has a unique context. They need to adapt lessons learned from other countries while addressing persistent inequalities. Their policy foundations are strong, but the challenge is implementing effective solutions that reach all learners. Overall, these examples remind us that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, but they also highlight the importance of stability, investment, inclusion, and adaptability, key lessons that South Africa can draw on as it continues its education journey.